Hey guys, Shah here, and today we are finally covering our fourth and final covenant for Guardian Druids. That's right, boys and girls, conveniently enough, with the release of the Afterlives Maldraxxus animated short featuring this stunning woman and the mother of my future children, Draka, we too will be exploring the military might of the Necrolords. We'll be taking a look at both the Covenant-wide and specific abilities and breaking them down as much as humanly possible, and this is going to get wild. So let's dive in. So, similar to every other Covenant video so far, and if you happen to miss them, I'm going to actually provide a link in the description below. There will also be a playlist at the end of this video that you guys can check out that has all the other Covenants. But similar to all those videos, we're going to break down the Covenant-wide ability first, that all players are going to have access to as a Necrolord, and this ability is called Fleshcraft. This ability is on a 2-minute cooldown, and since the inception of this, I've always felt it's going to be extremely strong for Guardian Druids and tanks alike. So what it does is it forms a shield of flesh and bone over 4 seconds that absorbs damage equal to 20% of your maximum health for 2 minutes. Channeling this near a corpse claims their essence to grow the shield up to 50% of your maximum health. This is the most effective against powerful enemies, assuming elites, of course. So, as usual, we're going to start with the pros of this ability. So, this ability helps cover a huge area of weakness for Guardian Druids, and that is that we're extremely vulnerable at the start of pulls. This has been true for Guardian Druids since the dawn of time. Unlike Warriors, we have no on-demand rage generator, so oftentimes we need to spend a few globals before we can apply our first Iron Fur. A consistent theme of many dungeons in Shadowlands is there is a linear layout or wings. Oftentimes it's difficult to pool rage, so when it's not possible to do so, Fleshcraft will come in handy. While it does have to be channeled, it can become an enormous shield based on how many enemies you've defeated at your feet when you begin the channel. There is a soulbind tree that can allow this to be able to cast while moving, which negates the negative effect of having to stand still for 4 seconds. So as usual, with pros, there has to be a few cons, and the first thing that comes to mind is that this is a CD ability. This ability has a long cooldown of 2 minutes. A 20% absorb is pretty small to be on a 2-minute cooldown. This isn't all bad, since if you had to channel it more often, it would feel actually more of a burden than anything. The worst part about this ability is the requirement to channel it over 4 seconds, which can kill the flow of a dungeon. Like I mentioned previously, there's ways around this to make it feel less of a burden because you can channel it while moving. The cons list for this is much shorter because the ability is much more practical than any of the other Covenant-wide abilities. It can absorb a large blow, or it can be used to nullify some of the pain that the Guardian Druids suffer at the start of pulls. With the few interactions this ability has with Soulbind Tree, it can actually be extremely useful for Guardian Druids and, like I said, tanks alike. That was a quick one, so we're going to just jump right into the class-specific ability. And the ability for Guardian Druids, and I guess Druids in general, this time around is a little more unique. And instead of being a utility-based or on a 2 or 3 minute cooldown, this is actually going to change your general rotation. And this ability is called Adaptive Swarm. This ability is on a 25-second cooldown, and how it reads is at command, a swarm that heals or deals shadow damage over 12 seconds to the targets and increases the effectiveness of your periodic effects by 20%. Upon expiration, this jumps to a target within 25 yards, alternating between friend and foe up to 3 times. Unlike a lot of other Covenant-wide abilities, Adaptive Swarm becomes an integral part of your Guardian Druid rotation. Something that the tooltip doesn't clarify or mention is that the stacks also transfer upon death. This makes it an extremely effective damage over time effect and healing over time effect because it acts as a smart heal and you won't lose the dot or the hot when a target dies. So some of the pros. Guardian Druids have a pretty boring rotation, as it's stated in several videos, and I could also agree the general damage rotation is fairly boring. Adding a pretty potent damage over time effect or a smart heal becomes extremely entertaining and useful. While it's hard to capitalize on the increased effectiveness of heal over time effects, since you're in bear form most of the time, this can offer some synergy with the restoration affinity and then the additive abilities like rejuvenation. The more realistic benefit here is going to lie with the increased effectiveness of your damage over time effects on the target. Now, this makes Galactic Guardian talent choice much better on single target encounters, and in dungeons as a whole, since your ability to apply Moonfires becomes almost passive and more aggressive. This will not only increase your damage over time of your Moonfire, but your Thrash Bleeds as well. This will have a synergy with a few new legendaries, but a lot of these are actually going to be kind of a stretch, but I was just trying to theorycraft as best I could with this because since Night Fae, we haven't seen a good synergetic combination of Covenant and legendaries. So the first one that you're going to see, and I'm going to talk about, Circle of Life and Death. And this causes your damage over time effects to deal their damage in 25% less time, and your healing over time effects in 15% less time. I doubt this will be meta early on. I really do, since tanks tend to focus on staying alive in earlier patches compared to doing damage. But this can be extremely useful if we ever get the chance to equip more than one legendary, or in general when paired with Galactic Guardian. Another legendary to keep in mind is Draught of Deep Focus. This legendary will provide more useful and single target raid fight encounters, but when equipped, your Moonfire, Rake, Rip, or Rejuvenation when applied to a single target will have their effectiveness increased by 30%. This can allow for high sustained damage while kitty weaving. Sadly, this isn't super practical in keys, but I did want to make note of it. So, there are some cons, obviously. I would say that the biggest issue that I have with this ability is the random nature for it to bounce to a random enemy and not prioritizing the target with the highest health. Same goes for healing. It won't always jump to the lowest player, and while it's on an ally, there's a high chance that the heal over time effect will just go towards overhealing. The running meme right now is that everyone in your group will need to have a cancel aura macro to make sure you're maximizing your damage and making sure that you keep your overhealing as low as possible. Outside of that, there aren't a lot of downsides to this ability because it actually changes our rotation and makes it a little bit more intricate. Overall, I find this ability really pleasing to play with. It's on a shorter cooldown, but it's not too short to make it feel like you're missing out on anything significant in your rotation. And the damage that it will deal makes it great for contributing to your overall damage and healing. I like that this is another Covenant ability that can synergize well with legendaries and talents. While I was researching, I stumbled on another legendary that can have a unique interaction with Adaptive Swarm as a heal over time amplifier, though it won't be practical in almost any way, shape, or form. But the legendary is called Lakara's Fleeting Glimpse. This can have Guardian Druids shift out of bear form to cast an instant wild growth if timed almost perfectly, so you'd have to have some crazy weak aura setup. But this would obviously have to be done while kiting, but while the regrowth heal over time effect is pretty potent, this will help your dungeon group, if played in this manner with Adaptive Swarm, actually have a higher healing throughput overall. But the chance of you guys actually doing that is so small. But like I said, this is just me trying to have fun theory crafting and probably isn't practical in the slightest, but I'm just trying to show you that this ability has like really odd and unique synergies with some talents and legendaries alike. So why would you want to play Necrolords? I'm just going to say it, there's no way you're going to play it for the transmog. This shit is hideous. While the army of Maldraxxus don't have much of a fashion sense, I do like the overall aesthetic of the zone and the Covenant Hall. It's very reminiscent of Wrath of the Lich King, and the Seat of the Primus has a really sweet vibe going on. So when it comes to Necrolord Covenant abilities, I think you'll find a great deal of satisfaction if you're planning on maining Guardian Druid. With Fleshcraft being a practical Covenant-wide ability that fills a huge hole in the Guardian Druid toolkit, and Adaptive Swarm allows for different playstyles while also contributing to like 10% of your overall damage. This may be the best choice for Guardian Druids pursuing Mythic Plus, and raiding encounters as well. If you enjoy other content, I highly recommend you do some research on what Covenants may contribute to your success as a contender in whatever type of content you'd like to do. So if you spec swap a lot, if you play Boomkin, if you play Feral, if you play Resto, I recommend looking into those Covenants, respectively. And that's pretty much going to wrap it up. It's pretty quick. This one wasn't actually too hard to decipher. This is the last Covenant of the 4 that we're going to take a look at, as I mentioned. Now that we've had time to process all the abilities and partially figure out what legendaries may synergize with the abilities and have some cool interactions with different talents, it is time to start looking at soulbinds and conduits. I will be exploring those very soon, so stick around for that. So if you aren't subscribed yet and are looking forward to those, feel free to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you are notified as soon as those videos are published. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please think about hitting that like button, and if you're feeling super edgy, go ahead and give it a love tap. If you hated it, do as Taliesin says and downvote the shit out of it. Like all my other videos, I would love to hear what you guys think in the comment section below, but without further ado, I hope you're all staying healthy, doing your laundry, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.